Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is this on? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, very good. Ready? Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the title today is Fundraising Regularity. And this is a very good time because it is a fundraising period. But it's our fundraising period. In other words, the things that we're doing, you come to a period, different periods in life where, well, the way we got it written here is no more silence. And we have in parentheses also no more intimidation. Although we're not intimidated, but the people we're dealing with are intimidated. And we haven't been silent either, but we haven't been, we're in another stage. And what I want everybody to understand is the stage that we're going through is we've selected the stage. We've selected the work that we'll do in this stage. And therefore, no matter what it looks like from the outside, we have some control over our own affairs. And it takes a long time to get to that point because you have to evolve to that point, because most people, when they realize that they're under surveillance by the FBI and others, that alone is enough to quiet people down. Just to know that they're under surveillance. I happened to see a program yesterday on the internet, and it was about the 1991 or 1990s when the Negro leadership was having a program. It might have been either here in Washington, D.C. or somewhere. It was a black leadership conference where the senators, the state representatives and all the representatives at that time had been placed under some investigation by the FBI and what have you. It was all the Negro leadership. Now, at that time, you got to remember in the 90s, the FBI considered, like right now, all of these guys are on the payroll type. But in 1990, they were like, the FBI would still consider them threats to the system. Because at that time, it was a lot of, Damley was a lieutenant governor out in California. So they had to fix it so he won't run for governor, and win. Down in New Orleans, that was state representatives, and there were national representatives developing all around the country at that time. So they had a conference. I think it might have been here in Washington, D.C. You can look it up. It was a C-SPAN conference on black leadership at that time. And it's a C-SPAN. It was, I'll look it up after a while. But anyway, no more silence or intimidation. For us, no more heartbreaking organizations like CARE and the Texas crew down there. What I mean by heartbreaking, see, we're going for what we could have went for a long time ago, or what we was swimming up near that is being national representatives of Islam in the United States. Okay, during this period, that's where we'll go to. And you might think, well, why now? Da, 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 da. Well, it's the spiritual timing. Remember, everything that we're doing is not only on our timing, it's historical timing. I mean, if you look at the United States of America and you look at the things that's happening to the United States, you might think they're having a streak of bad luck. No, they're in a historical period. Like literally almost every empire went through a period at their decline where they didn't win any wars anymore. They would have the best troops. They would have the best technology. At that time, when the Romans were fighting the barbarians up in Germania and things like that in 300 AD, okay, that was at the decline of the Roman Empire. Not the Holy Roman Empire, which lasted another 1,000 years from Constantinople, but the technical Roman Empire that was running things during Jesus' time, during Julius Caesar's time. That Roman Empire was moving toward a close or a decline. And so, if you look at the British Empire during the last century, in the 20s, and World War I came along, and it looked like it firmed up the British Empire, but the period between 1919, when the war was finished in 1918, and up to World War II, the British Empire was crumbling. And after World War II, it took a nosedive because all the people that were fighting for freedom that was helping the British Empire, they were saying, we could fight the Germans to help you be all right. Then what about you giving us a little something? And so that was a period of unanticipated liberation ideas amongst the people at the same time. We had people go over in World War I when they came back. 1919 was the biggest year for lynching in the United States. Why? Because the soldiers that came back, and they used to have a white folk song, how you gonna keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? You know, what it meant was not only for black troops, but for white folks. How you gonna keep people down on the farm after they've been to Paris? You know what I mean? Paris would be the greatest for the Negro now. It not only was the country folks, but that was a big period when people left the country. Remember, that was a time when almost all of Americans lived on farms in the country. So how you going to keep them down on the farm? How you going to keep the Negroes down on the farm after they've been to Paris and after the French have fallen in love with black people? Because the French had lost a whole generation, right? And they had black troops from their colonies come in, but these black troops from America, why, they had them brothers digging graves and everything, and the French said can we have these niggas? The U.S. said, of course you can, take them. They took American uniforms on, put on the French uniforms, and they had them integrated into the French army. And them Negroes fought harder and got more decorations and whipped more people during the whole war. That's what they did. Think back years ago why all black people would go over to France. Musicians, they go to France. Why? Because France fell in love with black people from America. You know, the French. They looked at it as though those Negroes saved us. So Josephine Baker went over there. You know, you ever heard, okay. Yeah, Josephine Baker, she got a lot of kids. Or she didn't get a lot of kids. She adopted a lot of kids. They just changed her gravesite to one gravesite of honor because she was black, but she helped in the French resistance. So she was a spy, a Negro spy. She was playing the role of what she was. She was a black singer in France, and the French loved her, but she was for the French underground. And the Germans would never suspect a Negro to be against, you know what I mean, to be for nothing. And they wouldn't think that the French would be liking no Negro that much. But she left the United States and went over there. It's a long story. But the old saying of how you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris. And remember, over here, if Negroes looked at a white woman, they would kill him. And they went over there, and the French women liked them. You know, like, we like you people. Yeah, I mean, great job, you know, stuff like that. And the whole French public, they didn't do their colonies too well, you know what I mean? But for Negroes from America, during the late 20s and 30s, the black people over here, the big musicians and all that, they went over there. In fact, when I was over there, a lot of musicians that wanted to make it good, they would go over to Paris. They would go over to Denmark and Sweden and all those places. And the white people over there loved them. When I was there, they had a fundraiser for Angela Davis, and Angela Davis' sister came over. And I was in Denmark, in Copenhagen. They had a big fundraiser for Angela Davis there. And when you would go into a white girl's house, which Negroes were special, now you could imagine. Just imagine if you're in the army and you're down in Germany, and on your weeks off or when you get time, you can catch the train and go up to Denmark and Sweden, because they're right there close together. So you get on the train, and that's why the Negro called me on my 75th birthday. I think I might have told you all about it. And he said, remember the last time you saw us in a train station? And yeah, da-da-da-da-da. Well, anyway, imagine now, when I'm in Germany, this is during the Vietnam War, and they were all not volunteers. They just snatched them niggas up, and they didn't want to be in the army for nothing. And the Black Power movement, if you think it was something outside, you should have seen it in the army. So, I mean, all that handshaking, and if you was black in America, you know, when you go outside of America, you're super whatever you trying to remember and them Negroes were super black. But now, when they went up to Denmark and Sweden, them white girls love Negroes. And you go into a white girl's house, she'd have every book on blacks, every book written by a black, all the blacks at that time, Soul on Ice, you know, Eldridge Cleaver, they had every book. So technically they knew, I mean, they had them just because they were interested in Negroes, you know. And they liked I'm telling you, it was a trip. One day, I'm on a place, we call it Pussy Ali, the street. The whole stroll for Copenhagen. Now, just imagine Copenhagen. You've heard of Danish pastries, right? Well, about 4 o'clock in the morning, they cooking all them Danish pastries, real Danish, not the stuff they have here. They call it Danish pastry. They're not like that. You eat any Danish pastry, you're going to like it. So early in the morning, We get up, even if it's 6 or 7 o'clock, man, them Danish pastries is fresh. And that was part of the lifestyle. But also the thing about it too was there are many people in Denmark. Number one, there were people we call Eskimos. Because Denmark is up there and they have places that belong to them. Like, and those people, they up there at the top of the world, they have little colonies, where the people are Eskimo. We call them Eskimos, and that's what they are. And they lived up there, but anyway, Denmark was such a country. In those days, they loved black people. But when you travel around and you see